Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sensational Six. This morning, we're going to continue our conversation about spiritual laws. But first, I'm going to do a quick invocation. So I invite you to take a deep breath and just know that it is the breath of spirit that fills you in this moment. That there is this one energy that is the harmony and the unity back of all things. And we are each an individualized expression of that. And as we come together this morning, we connect in heart and in mind. And I know that aha moments are abundant and available for every one of us, everyone listening, and everyone who may listen in the future. I am so grateful to be here and to spend this time with everyone who is tuned in, whether it be on Zoom or YouTube or here in this panel. What a joy. And so it is with a grateful heart that I just anchor this moment in truth and in love and release it as law, knowing it is so, as we join together to say, and so it is.
So it is.
Awesome. So this morning, every week we try to share a little something with you from our own hearts, whether it's a quote or an experience. And this morning we're going to share a really big experience for us. Last week we all went through our ministerial panels, and you've all been on this journey with us. So we really want to take time to share our experience with you. And I believe Gail is going to kick us off.
Thank you, Lori. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gail Morton. And last week, as Lori said, we shared with you that for the six of us, the entire week was a capstone of our 2-year plus journey through ministerial training. And we were all told, and we all fully understood, that this was the week that all eyes were on us, and that the week would culminate in each one of us participating in an exploratory panel. And that from which a final either pass or did not pass for the ministerial credential would be given. So we all introduced ourselves last week with our individual experiences around the pulpit talks that were part of that week of ministerial panels. So today we're going to introduce ourselves, and then we're going to share with you our individual experience with the final capstone of the week, which was our individual panels. So what I realized as I immersed myself in what was truly the love, the support, and what I would call engaging curiosity that I received from my panel ministers was that this week was not just about a final assignment to demonstrate what I'd learned in this 2 years of studies. More importantly, it was to help me to synthesize, to blend, and to integrate what I'd become through my studies. And probably more importantly, how what I had become would express itself in my service of ministry. So for me, the way I described this week was it was a week of awe. And for me, awe was much more than a week of success and celebration, because what I came away with was something much more lasting, and I think for me, much more eternal, which was a deep, deep sense of accomplishment. And from a spiritual standpoint, I believe that there's a different kind of success, one that really just doesn't come and go with the changing winds, but stays with you because it's deep within you. And I call this success accomplishment. And this is really what I'm feeling and what I felt all last week. So my feelings of accomplishment are not about I finished it, I acquired a ministerial credential, or I did it. It's, for me, this journey of accomplishment is all about all of us. It was all of us sharing and giving and including. And yes, there was a lot of work that I individually had to do, but it was all of us sharing for 2 years, for giving for 2 years, and including for 2 years that brought me forward to what's next. So upon reflection, I also realized that our spiritual teacher, Dr. James Mellon, created so much room for our work around this, and really brilliantly so when I think about it. as that's what ministry is all about. It's about sharing, it's about giving, it's about including. And I am so grateful for this gift of accomplishment, because for me, it's one of those few things in life that feels like it lasts. It allows me to look back on this experience and say, you know, I grew through this. I'm happy for it. And I know it's making a difference. So thanks for letting me share that. And with that being said, let's hear now from everybody else. Dale, how about you?
Yeah, it was, to me, it was an unexpected experience because it was so deeply profound for me. A word that was coming to mind as Gail was speaking was demonstration. We were working very hard for 2 years, going from one assignment to the next assignment to preparing for this and doing that, just so in the doing of becoming a minister and getting our assignments done. And this week for me was a chance to just exhale and look back at the last 2 years and go, oh my God, look at all the stuff I've done. Because for me, just when you're in it, doing it, for me, I just wasn't aware of all that I was doing until that moment where the panels were complete, that I said, that was phenomenal. And I'm proud for myself. I'm proud for everybody here, because I know that we all just didn't do enough to get by. We brought our A game every step of the way. And to stand here with my colleagues, it's such an honor, first of all, because I've seen everybody grow so profoundly, including myself, and that we've kind of arrived at this new state of consciousness where, yes, we've accomplished a lot and we've done a lot, but to me, it's like we're just beginning. We're just beginning. We've been given the skills, we've raised our consciousness, and now we really get to dive into what our work is for the center and the world at large. So for me, it's just, my panel experience was phenomenal. I felt like that they treated me like a peer, because I wasn't sure what to expect. I thought at first I was thinking, oh, it's kind of like another test, but they welcomed me as if I was one of them. And they had a conversation with me. They asked me about, tell them about my thesis. What do I think about generating prosperity in a congregation? What are my ideas about this? And I felt like, wow, this is the way to bring somebody into the fold of ministry, to treat them as if they're already that. And so it was a lovely experience for me. I love all of them. And it was just very, very emotional. And by Friday night, just to out myself, I usually don't cry in front of people. It's just, I know I can if it comes up, but it came up so big. We had a get together on Friday night with our entire class, kind of like our celebration. And man, I just got so filled with passion and emotion when I gave my share, and I just let it roll. And I was okay with it. I was okay with being vulnerable. I am intimately connected with everybody because of what we've been through. So it felt so lovely to be able just to let that all be expressed, and to just be in that state of love with you guys are all my brothers and sisters, as is our whole class. So a great week and a great beginning for all of us. So with that said, I'm going to pass it to Brad.
Awesome. Thanks for that. The panel was just a really sweet completion to all of the work we did. We don't get to do that until we've done a talk and we have 2 years of activities and homework and thesis and activities done. And then the very last thing is sitting in front of 3 other ministers that you don't have a relationship with, and they listen to you and they question you and they love you. And it was just a really rich, deep conversation to have. And even thinking of it coming up, after it was complete, it was much more joy-filled for me than I thought it was going to be. It was just, it was a wonderful conversation, a wonderful release. And not much more to say about that. It was just, you can picture this times 1,000. That's what it was great to feel like. So I'm gonna cut it a little short here and pass to Cheryl.
Good morning, everyone. My experience was when I walked in, they said, if you don't know this stuff by now, all of the, what is this, what is that, if you don't know it by now, then, there's no point in asking you. But they said it was like they wanted to see and feel from each one of us a consciousness of ministry. And to me, that was like, wow. When they said that to me, so it was more like a conversation and talking about what I feel and what I want to see and what I'd like to do with my ministry and about my thesis, because I was a little controversial in there, but still. But it was really beautiful because I just felt like they were my cheerleaders, not my test panel. You know, it was like, we're not here to test you. We're just here to find out who you are and what you want to do with your ministry. And so at the end of it, it was so funny when they said, well, you are a reverend. I don't know, through the Emerson Institute. I'd like to qualify that. And I just went, oh, thank you. It was just all of that time. And it wasn't just the last 2 years, if you think about it. We went through practitioner training for 2 years. And then before that, we had classes. So mine ended up being like a 6 or 7 year journey by the time it was done. But I'm just now at the threshold of where, and that's from Dale's talk. She did a great crossing the threshold talk, but it's like I'm right now at the threshold, and now infinite possibility and potential is in front of me now. And it's not like it was the end. It just brought me to the beginning of where I'm going to go. And all 18 of us in the graduating class passed to panels, which is phenomenal. I mean, all 18 people, and everybody, like Dale said, brought their A game. It was fabulous to see. And it was just so exciting. We were doing like a countdown all day long. Oh, they finished their panel. Oh, they're a reverend now. Oh, now they're there. All day long, all the way through. And it was, we were all cheering for each other. It was beautiful. So I'm just so glad to be standing here at the threshold now. So thank you. And now I'm going to pass it on to William, my brother.
Thank you, Cheryl, so much. Yes, this week in particular has been very emotional. For the past 4, 6, and most recently the past 2 years actually being in with Dr. James, there's been so much growth. And it really didn't hit me until panels. And just like everyone said, it wasn't an interview as if, okay, right or wrong. It was nothing less than just a conversation among peers. And I felt so welcome and so open. I was sharing my ideas about what I see for the future. It was just wonderful to be able to articulate during my panels what I was feeling. And one thing that really struck a chord with me, and Cheryl touched on it, and Dale touched on it with her threshold, is towards the end of my interview, they said, you and everyone are the future of this teaching. And it hit me like a ton of bricks of, oh my gosh, here, this whole time I was going through this process to become a minister just for my own knowledge and for my own understanding of the universe and my relationship with spirit. And if I learned that, and if I came from that, then along the way I'd help people here and there. But it would just always be this natural flow of energy. But when that was said to me, it wowed me to my core, that I'm still feeling it even to this day right now, is we are, the 18 of us from this graduating class really are the future of this philosophy. And each and every single one of us are going to bring it out into the world and express it in their own individual, unique way. And I am at the starting line. I am not at a finish line. I am beginning the race right here and right now. And that's what I am just so very thankful. And for anyone who is in practitioner training now, or who is thinking about becoming a practitioner, that is the beginning. And that's where I just came from. I just became a practitioner because I just want to take this class. then the next class, then the next class. And before you know it, you become this minister that you never even thought was a possibility, or wasn't even not a possibility, but just it wasn't my end game goal. It was just to understand myself and the universe around me and relationships with other people. And it's just been a wonderful journey. And so I'm going to now turn it over to Lori. So thank you.
Oh, well, much like William, it was just taking that one class after another, wanting to know more. So for me, this has been a 20-year journey of just one class after another, and just more, please. And everything that we're going to be talking about today, and that we have been talking about regarding spiritual laws, it's really the desire to understand how they work so that I can work them better in my own life and help others to do that. So that has been my journey, just wanting to know more and more. And I'll echo my colleagues in saying the feeling of all 18 of us crossing that threshold, rising and shining together, was amazing. To get those texts, another one, 6 for 6, oh my God, 12 for 12. And then, I've got God bumps, just even thinking back to it, my heart just welling up with such excitement to see each one of us. And we are the first graduating class that the entire class did that. The entire class became ministers. That to me is phenomenal. And we're also like the largest class. So the largest, and each one of us crossed over to become a minister. It was an amazing experience to have together. And certainly within this group, who has become so close over this last 2 years. And for me, the panels were an opportunity, like Dale said, to really just stand almost like on a mountaintop with these other colleagues who were so loving. And it was as if they put their arm around me and said, let's look this way at the journey and where you've come from. And now let's turn over here and look at where you're going next and tell us about that. And it was so amazingly clarifying, and the things that just flowed from me surprised me. It was a delightful experience, and as everyone else said, we are just at the beginning. With every ending becomes a new beginning, and I am so excited to see where all 18 of us go, and particularly this group. So stay tuned. We're on our way. So today we're still talking about spiritual laws. And the reason we continue to do that is because, like any law, whether it's electricity or gravity, when you understand how something works, then you can work with it. And there are all these subtle laws that maybe you haven't heard of, but they're just different ways of talking about the law. We would say we release our word to the law or as the law. What is this law we speak of, and how does it show up in our lives? And we've been exploring the subtle ways that happens, and perhaps the not so subtle ways, so that we can become our ability to use the law, we can hone it. And as we hone it, we can apply it in our lives in a very specific way. And out of that comes every demonstration. That's what pushes our experience forward in a conscious way rather than a haphazard way. So we're all about application here. And Dale is going to today talk about the law of sacrifice, which I'm really excited to hear her take on that. So I'm going to pass it off to Dale to kick us off on the discussion of the law of sacrifice.
Thank you, Lori, for that. Well, good morning, everybody. I love what you said, Lori, about laws and spiritual laws, because there are so many ways to talk about our spiritual laws. And at the end of the day, there's really one law, which is the law of cause and effect. But it's so helpful as human beings navigating life and learning how to really expand ourselves and develop ourselves. It helps to be able to speak to different laws so that we can look at different parts of our life experience and work with those experiences so we can create greater good in our lives. So as you know, I'm teaching the law of sacrifice today, and I want to just show you this book. This is a favorite of Dr. Joe's. It's called Working with the Law by Raymond Hollowell. And he has a whole bunch of laws that he's chosen to put in this book, and one of which is the law of sacrifice. And many of you might be recoiling when you hear that word sacrifice, because it has this connotation of having something taken away from you, or you need to give something up. And that's really not what this is all about, the law of sacrifice. I love to look up words and see what the Old English definitions are. And this was great because sacrifice actually means to perform a sacred rite or holy action. I don't hear anything about needing to let go of something that you love. It's all about doing something that is spiritually enhancing for you. So that's really what the law of sacrifice is all about. Now, as we are reflections of nature, we know that in nature, that things need to be weeded out, that there's overgrowth, and that in order for new growth to come in, we need to clear the field so the new growth can come up. So for me, the law of sacrifice is all about looking within, doing our work to see what weeds need to be pulled out of the field so the new growth can come in. And that's really what this is all about, the law of sacrifice, looking at what no longer serves us. And so we'll look at our beliefs, we'll look at our thoughts, we'll look at, things that are in our lives that aren't resonating for us anymore, that aren't promoting our growth, and doing our work to let go of that stuff. And I don't want to freak anybody out, because you don't need to do it all at once. I'm all about doing whatever is present, whatever you've been looking at, or whatever has been giving you a feeling of just something not right in your life. That's what to look at as far as the law of sacrifice. So what we're doing here today with the law of sacrifice is looking at our own lives and seeing how we might apply that. And I know that after I finish, we're going to be turning to the six to see how they've experienced the law of sacrifice in their own lives. So it's really about cleaning up our inner space, asking us, what are we attached to that isn't serving us? What mental addictions do we have? What sort of thought obsessions do we have that aren't working for us? And what do we need to do? What's keeping us limited? What self-talk are we doing? These are the things to sacrifice to. This is the holy work to look at this, whatever is not serving us, and do whatever inner sort of action we need to do to sacrifice it so that the new good comes in. There's a quote from Aristotle that says, nature abhors a vacuum. And this is wonderfully comforting, because that means as we're sacrificing these things that aren't serving us, nature is going to bring forth something better that will fill its place. So as we're doing this inner work, it's really important to be mindful about our feelings that are going on with the serving of what we're seeing, and any kind of resistance to detaching or to letting go, because that we don't want to put ourselves in any kind of uncomfortable place when we're doing our inner work. I see it as kind of like a dance. Something becomes clear to me that needs to be sacrificed or released, and then I'm going to sit with that. I'm going to do my work. Why can't I let it go? It's not serving me. What's the thing going on here? And I give myself time to do the sacrifice. It's so important, because when we do that sacrifice, we want to be ready to let it go, knowing that there is a greater good that we're opening ourselves up to when we let go of whatever it is that is not serving us. And I love that Ernest Holmes says that we have to let go of the lesser to be able to embrace the greater. He was such a master at those nuggets of truth that are so, they're just so, for me, they land so deep, and I get it. And to me, that allows me to look at my field of what needs to be released, because I know that as I let go of that, there is a greater that's just yearning to come in through me, and holding on to that lesser doesn't let it in. And that's what we need to be mindful of. When we hold on to the lesser, that which is not serving us, we're actually blocking our growth. And not to shame anybody at all. Remember, this is how inner growth is done. It's loving ourselves through it, understanding what we're living in, and seeing what we're ready to let go of, to bring forth our greater expression of beingness. So So how do we use this law in a way that's comfortable for us? I have a few steps for us. So we want to stop looking at it as having something that we love to let go of. Just stop looking at it as I've got to let go of something I'm really attached to. Just take that off the table, reframe it. I need to let go of something that is not helpful for me. I need to let go of something that is squashing my growth. I need to let go of something that's blocking me from living into my dreams. Start reframing that instead of holding tightly to this attachment. We also want to open up to that greater good and start visioning what is that? Rather getting so hooked in of what's being sacrificed, let's look at what we're ready to let in. Really thinking about, well, if I let go of that, what are the possibilities I can bring in? If I let go of thinking that I'm only this much and start seeing myself as being unlimited, what can I bring into my life now? Looking at the possibilities. Start looking at that. It's really reframing what this whole sacrifice is all about. Rather than getting hung up in the letting go, what am I letting in? So it's all about using that mind in a different way. Something that I really like to do, and a lot of us, we talked about this in our ministerial classes, the importance of ritual. Something that I like to do when I'm really working on something and I'm ready to let it go, especially if it's something, maybe a person or something that was close to my heart. I like to do ritual around it, knowing, okay, this has to go. I'll do a little ritual, even if it's an old belief. Even with old beliefs, I'll say something like, okay, a belief where I thought I wasn't good enough for something. I'll say, well, that belief served whatever purpose it served. And now I'm ready to release it and know that I'm worthy and deserving. I am a child of spirit, and the whole universe is mine for the taking. So I might do a little ritual around it. I might have like a prayer that I do, or I might go out into my yard and do something with nature. But it's lovely to be able to complete this cycle of sacrifice and opening up to a greater good, to put it into a nice little ritual, because it's closure and it opens us up to really allowing our good to come in a way, because we've cleared the field and we're letting the good come in. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Marie Kondo. She's on like Netflix, and she wrote a book about cleaning your space, your actual physical space. And she says to people when they're cleaning out like clutter, you hold on to it and you say, is this bringing me joy anymore? And that's the test to knowing if you need to, give it away to somebody or if it's yours to keep. And I think this is the same holds true for whatever we're ready to let go of in our lives, whether it's, a person, a belief, an old way of looking at ourselves, an identity that we held for ourselves. Is this bringing me joy to think like this? And if the answer is no, well, then it's time to do the work to release that and bring forth your, what is your joy? If we're living in a place where we're not experiencing our joy, our work is to figure out what's not bringing us joy, eliminating that, doing whatever work to process it out of our lives and open ourselves up to all those things that bring us joy to come into our lives. So I guess the bottom line with all of this is it's ours to do. It's all ours to do. And yes, it does take some discipline. But I'm telling you, when you set your intention to clear your field, to do your surveying, seeing what's not working anymore, to set the intention to do that work, you're freeing yourself to live a greater life experience. You're freeing yourself to have more love, more life, more joy, more prosperity, more people. The wholeness of life is just being given an opportunity to come forth when we clear the field of that which does not serve us anymore and open up to that greater good. So that's what I have to tell you about the law of sacrifice. And I would love to open it up to the six now and talk about how you guys have seen this play out in your life or your experience with the law of sacrifice, and anything you want to add to it as well.
Excuse me, Gail, just before we go on to some questions, there were a number of comments and questions in the Q&A, folks, our listeners, asking about what are we doing next? Hey, I heard about a church open in Virginia. Are you going to go there? Are you going to go to another center? So, we're all six of us are actually having a meeting in 3 hours with Reverend Charles. So I'm sure next week in our sharing time at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, we'll have lots more information to share with you. So, but appreciate you inquiring and asking and being concerned and wanting to hear about what's next for us. So I just wanted to address that before we got into some more questions about this amazing topic.
So I'll jump in because it occurred to me this morning, one of my favorite things I got from my first minister, Reverend Mary Beth Spear, and her husband, Michael Spear, who was also, they were co-ministers, and they were my first teachers. And I remember her saying to me, the space for the thing you want is being taken up by the thing you've settled for. And it was like, oh, one of those I could have had a V8 moments. And she was talking about the law of sacrifice. Where is the space for the thing you want being taken up by the thing you've settled for? It's letting go of the littleness in favor of your bigness, in favor of who you truly are, in favor of the truth. I've sacrificed, like Dale said, really kicks up a little monkey mind. When I think I have to give up something, particularly when it's food, I'll just go there. For me, that's like a huge monkey mind thing. I have to, I really like cookies or whatever it is. But when I focus just on the thing I want, which is health, which is to be physically fit, which is to experience the best version of my body I can, that just goes away on its own because I'm focusing all my energy on what I truly want. And so that space is being taken up by the thing you've settled for was a huge aha for me. And it's one I continue to ask myself, where am I doing that? Where am I hanging on to something that is just taking up space at this point? And am I willing to just shift my attention to what I really want and focus on that? And to me, that's like just such a gentle path and such a ease-filled path.
That's wonderful. I think I'm going to go off the tail end of that for sacrifice. It really is not about losing something, but it's about releasing an idea. I had to sacrifice for myself who I was, this little me. And I had to allow that to be released so that I could become something greater. The potential was always there, but it's that false belief that you grow up with based upon an idea that someone who you thought had authority over you planted that seed in you. And so that is what's wonderful about this law. Again, it's not going without, but it's releasing something for a greater purpose. It's what you're holding on, what Lori just said, going back to the seed, soil, plant, that seed is taking up space in soil. So why not pull that weed out to allow space in the soil for that new thing to grow? I mean, I love that idea. And so I challenge you about what you think about your life as a viewer. What is it that you want to experience? And look back at ideas about yourself which actually limit the potential of what you already are. And so the 6 of us here today are challenging you to sacrifice those ideas that no longer serve who and what you are. And this is a great talk, Dale. Thank you so much for bringing this up. And I've said all I'm going to say about this.
Thank you, William. I think I'll jump in now, and I loved your various analogies. For me, they were really helpful. So, when I first discovered this law of sacrifice, I might have thought of it a little bit differently than some of my friends have shared here. I often think of the word sacrifice as completely selfless acts in which someone does something for another person entirely for the other person's benefit. So an example, a soldier sacrificing his life for his comrades comes to mind for me. That's kind of how I thought about sacrifice in the law. But sacrifice, then I found when I dug into it and applied these teachings, is that it isn't purely altruistic. And one of the definitions that I actually really like in sacrifice, because the word forfeit doesn't scare me off at all, is American Heritage Dictionary, which says sacrifice is to forfeit something for something else considered to have a greater value. And the greater value is my emphasis. And that's really what everybody else has said here. And what that said to me when I read it is it doesn't mean giving up something for nothing, ever. It means maybe giving up one thing for something else that we believe is worth more. And let me give you a personal example in my life that would help maybe describe this. So sometimes I'll have a moment, and sometimes I've had a moment where I miss the freedom of my childless days. But would I give up my daughters to return to that freedom, to return to that time? And the answer is absolutely not. I sacrificed one thing, which was more freedom, for something that for me had much, much greater value, and that was my children. So I'd like to share a little bit then about how you might hear us as practitioners speak of the law of sacrifice, because you probably have never heard us use the word sacrifice. I don't think I ever have, but it is about, as William said, creating that space. So the law of sacrifice says that you can't get something you want without giving something up in return, in essence. So in order to attain something that you believe is of greater value, you have to give up something else that no longer serves you. So for me, when I learned that no longer serves me, that really softened that word forfeit and made sense for me. Because I realized that without sacrifice, there's no movement forward, there's no growth or expansion, because we haven't created the space, as William said, for it. So sometimes in practitioner sessions, you might hear us say, what do you need to give up to move into your greatness? And we're talking about the law of sacrifice. And you might hear us ask a question that says, what do you need to release to expand into all that you desire? And again, that's the law of sacrifice. And it works with all the other laws. As Dale said, it's really all about the law of cause and effect and all these other laws that work with it. And so this is a universe of order and balance, period. That is how it works. And in balance, beliefs that no longer serve us need to fall off or be forfeited for us to have the space to fall forward, to grow forward. Thank you for letting me share.
I'd like to jump in. It makes me, when I first heard sacrifice, I was thinking the same way as Gail, that, okay. And then I hear the word ritual and I'm like, okay. But what it comes down to is the letting go, or like we say, there's coin attached to everything. So where are you spending your money, your coins? Are you putting it into an old, worn out belief that no longer works? It doesn't work for you because you're starting to see the effects of it in your life. And when you go to that point, then what you're doing is you are releasing something that's draining your coinage and putting it into something that's going to really add to your life. And so, it's the habit, what we get into this trap, though, I think sometimes, is that we get into this habitual thinking where this is the only way it can be. Every time someone asks you, what could you do to change this? What could you do to make this better? You go right back to your same arguments, and you've got them all. You've got every argument about why you should clutch onto this and just grasp onto it. Well, sacrifice to me reminds me of what Gail said in her talk at the panels, was to surrender, just to let it go. So it's not necessarily that you have to do, something great and amazing to let go of that habitual thinking. It's just an easy way of just surrendering it. It's like, this isn't working. I'm miserable. And in my own life, I just had, I was brought up in a consciousness of poverty. And so I was just convinced that's the only way it could be. There was no other way to do it. That, it was obvious. That's how it always turned up in my life and everything else. And then when I just let go of that and knew that God was my source and that everything, all the abundance of the universe is mine to access anything. It was just like, I didn't have to sacrifice that thought. I just surrendered and forfeited, whatever the word that works for you. So, even though it might look like it's really, really, oh, I can't think like that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. So I love this one sacrifice because, like I said, at first when I heard it, I was like, what's this going to be about? Are we going to do some kind of ritual? It just reminds me of one time that some lady came over to do a minute miracle with me, and she said, and her friend said, oh, Cheryl can do a treatment for you. And this woman had never been to our center before, and she looked at me like, what are you going to do? I don't know if she thought I was going to lay her on a table and do I don't know, but it absolutely terrified her. And she goes, I don't want to be treated. I was like, no, it's more like prayer, but once she heard treatment, boom, she's gone, but it was still that she wasn't ready to let go of whatever it was that she was holding on to more than anything else. It wasn't so much about what was going to happen. It was that she just wasn't ready. And I could see that. And I said, okay, that's fine. Don't worry. We'll try it again some other time. But see, it's not that difficult if you just surrender it. You just let it go. Anyway, thanks for letting me share.
I want to invite everybody who's listening that if you have any questions or anything about all this, I'll let our panelists know, because it's just between myself and the technician at Swing Point Media, Trey, who we're observing the questions and comments. And so there's a lot of conversation about it. I can't wait to hear what you talk about next week and what's up for you guys next and where your ministries are headed. So it's very sweet conversations going on. So thank you all that are listening for that. And one person did write that we have a wonderful views on this topic. Now, I'm gonna probably have to get out of the visual of a practitioner client laying on the table, what Cheryl just talked about, which is just hilarious to view. But that's not that kind of sacrifice. But all the other things we've heard about, starting with Gail, or releasing, or what it looks like, or the word sacrifice, it's amazing how one topic that even may be fairly new for some of the panelists or the listeners, how there's such rich depthness to not just understand that topic, but to incorporate it into our own lives. How can I take what's being shared in front of me to incorporate it? And I know from all these amazing viewpoints, you heard at least one thing, from a ritual to what do I need to let go of, to what am I paying my spiritual coin to, or I'm paying spiritual coin to let go of something because it's going to cost me, like William talked about, my previous beliefs or my previous something of what I thought the day before, that it may be painful for me to let go of. So whatever the level of connection you have with the law of sacrifice or the word sacrifice, think about it. And I hope you're all taking notes today too, because I was, about where can I use something to a deeper level of my life. That's what it's all about, right? We realize there's one life, that life is God, that life is my life. And how can every moment and every breath and every meditation and every, Sensational 6 broadcast, can I take that truth and embody it a little deeper? So anybody have any other comments? No more other questions for right now.
I think our Dr. James has trained all of us very well. And I always come back to knowing who we are, because when we know that we are the allness of spirit and that we are the divine in expression, moving through this type of sacrifice or examination allows us to walk through it more groundedly, to know that even with these shifting things that are taking place within ourselves, to see what isn't working, what isn't serving us, and opening up to a greater good and letting go of something we may have been attached to for a very long time. When we know that we are the eternality of spirit, doing this work makes it a lot easier because we can lean into that truth. And all these things that we teach you guys, remember that there's this spirit that you are, and if you're not identifying with that or getting what that means for you, that's something to open up to, because when you have that and when that's being strengthened and developed within you, all of this wonderful transformational work that you do becomes so much easier, because when you know who you are, you know that nothing is lost and you're in no harm's way when you do this type of work to really examine what needs to be released, what needs to be worked out, so that you can live that greater life. So I'm all about always reminding us, know who you are, because you have it all, always.
And I love that Dale brought that up. So important, know who you are. And if any of you are scratching your heads right now and saying, who am I? I don't know who I am. I want to share with you that you are all that you are. And it's a matter of simply revealing it. Nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing's broken. It's simply that revealing. And a great way to reveal knowing who you are is to work with a minister or a practitioner. So I just want to remind you of those, of all of our availability and desire to work with you. It's certainly been the biggest blessing in my life to be able to reveal that for myself. And I love the summary that, Brad, you did a beautiful job of kind of summarizing this law of sacrifice. And we've talked a lot about the nuts and bolts of it, the mechanics, why it works, why it's important to understand how it works. And that's really why we're here. What is it? How do you understand it so that you can use it to be a greater expression of spirit, to expand your life in so many ways? And the other thing I want to share with you then about the law of sacrifice is that, and it's a really beautiful thing, is that it's not only a great path to achieving your goals, as we've shared, but the path itself actually prepares you to handle life at the top. So sacrificing not only gets you to your goals, which it absolutely does, but it hones and shapes you as a spiritual individual all along the way.
Earlier we shared about our experience in panels and how amazing that was for each one of us. And one of the reasons that was our experience was because we were in the presence of people who knew who we were. They saw the truth, and that opened up an incredible space that allowed us to see it for ourselves. And that's what we do as practitioners and ministers. There's no greater joy than to sit with somebody or stand with somebody and see who they are. And we offer that gift to you. We really do. So please, please reach out if you need some support, because you are giving us a gift to be in your presence, to be in the presence of that infinite spirit, and to know that all possibility is right here, right now, is the most amazing feeling. So please take that to heart and know that we are all here for you.
So we're still, if anybody has any questions, we're not quite ready to start wrapping up our program. But just a tag on to what Lori mentioned, all of our practitioners or any of us, soon probably hopefully we'll get, contact information on the web or somewhere easier to contact. You can always call the office and find out what's going on, or contact someone you do know saying, do you have an old program that, remember programs and Sundays, that we can get a list of our practitioners and contacts to use. So if you don't have questions, here's what I do as a teacher. We must have been so good. The listeners just say, I got that. I don't have any questions. Next. So know that for yourself, that, it was clear. I mean, my colleagues are really clear. Their descriptions and explanations and understanding of the concept is just riveting. I'm watching them intensely when they're sharing of, wow, that's great, kind of idea. But you can always watch us in a couple hours when it's going to be posted and get more depth information. Does anybody on the panel want to share anything about this topic of the law of sacrifice, or anything else you'd want to just share to wrap up our day? Looks like Gail put her hand up first.
I just want to share one more thing, because we've talked a lot about you being at choice always. That choice is your birthright. You're always at choice. And what comes up for me in this moment is then, if, why do people week after week, month after month, year after year, keep doing things that they dislike, as if they don't have a choice? And what I want to just reemphasize with you, with all of the laws, but with this law of sacrifice today, is that you are always at choice. You always are. We may not decide to make those choices, but we always have the ability to make a choice that will change our circumstances. And sometimes for me, at the end of the day, the most important question that I can ask myself when I'm evaluating my dreams, my desires, my goals, or even what am I going to do with this thing that I dislike? And it's not anymore, what am I willing to do to attain them? This is also a good question, but often I have to come back to, what is it that I am willing to give up so that I can move to my next greater expression and experience? So please remember, you're always at choice.
So I want to share a tip that's kind of been useful for me. So even the word give up, sacrifice, all those things as we look at letting go, sometimes that can really kick up some monkey mind, right? It can kick up a, no, I don't want to. And, here's what works for me. Monkey mind, well, thank you for sharing. Nevertheless, and then just shift your attention to what you want in your life. And as many times as it takes to do that. Thank you for sharing. Nevertheless, I take the next step forward towards my greater good, towards that which I want. That word nevertheless has just propelled me forward in a way that no other word has. It's like my favorite word, nevertheless. And I just keep moving towards that which I want. And the rest just gets further and further away. And so that was just something I wanted to share because it was really useful in my own life. It's something I still use. When monkey mind kicks up, thank you for sharing. Nevertheless.
I'd just like to add on to that just a little bit. Sometimes when you're looking at a situation, maybe it's around a person, maybe it's a family member or someone like that, it's very difficult to just throw your family out, but you'd like to sometimes, but not necessarily. But maybe it's about changing your attitude around a situation, rewriting the story and looking at it from a different point of view. And that's hard to do because we all have our own point of view, we all have our story and we know what it is. But I just call it, like, I know that's not what it really means, but I call it the 6-degree shift, like 6 degrees of separation. All you have to do is shift a little bit this way and, oh, it looks different, and you look at something and you shift this way, it looks different. So I just invite you to just open up your mind and start exploring what can you do in a situation where maybe you can't throw your mother-in-law out or whatever, but you can make it work better, and you can be in a happier place, and you can be a lot more comfortable around that situation if you change your attitude around it. And, so it is about sacrificing and letting go of old agreements and things, but it's also about changing the attitude that you have around things that are difficult in your life. So try that too. That's part of the process of letting it go eventually, to where those things don't have effect on you anymore because you're not allowing it into you. You are staying in your place of truth and who you are right there in that moment. So maybe that's one way to do it, just to think about, okay, change my attitude a little bit. Thank you.
I'll complete the circle because I know we're getting close to our time. If you feel like you're just really piled up and you don't even know how to begin igniting yourself to start doing this work that we've suggested, I want you all to know that there's a power and a place within you that does know, that is resonating with what we're teaching you, and give it a voice, because that's what's going to take you into being able to do all of these wonderful suggestions so that you can really start eliminating those thoughts, beliefs, situations that are not serving you, so you can live the life that you so truly are ready to live.
I'll share just a few comments before we close up. Linda's calling us perennial blossomers. It's really sweet. Someone else says wonderful viewpoints. Adair shares, thank you for helping us understand this infinitely important concept. So appreciate all of you. So no questions, just a lot of wonderful kudos like that. Thank you, listeners.
And I'll just continue this as we start to close up and final comments that everyone has put forth now. Again, yes, the law of sacrifice is allowing yourself to release the ideas and thoughts that are no longer serving you, to help you towards that greater self-expression. Not only can you work within yourself, but you also have tools at the Center for Spiritual Living that can help you. We have practitioners, and we have newly, soon to be reverends. Everyone at the center is here and willing and wanting to be of service to help you find your path, not a path, but your path. And so with that, I'd like to continue with this. I'd like to say that if anything in this broadcast has resonated with you, please, we appreciate your donations. It helps support the center to allow our message of inclusivity to be brought out into the world through Dr. Joe and Reverend Charles. Anything that you can possibly give, knowing that as you give, you so receive. And so anything you can do would be greatly appreciated. You can find that donate button anywhere on our website. It's down below us here on YouTube. You can also find previous videos at CSL Palm Desert, or no, Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert on YouTube. And you can watch our previous shows and any show that we've broadcasted throughout this. With that, I'm going to read off some announcements that we do have here. So again, every day, as Dr. Joe does, 10 o'clock, we have something going on. So tomorrow we're going to have Dr. Joe and Reverend Charles talking about issues that they always talk about. It's going to be insightful. It's going to be a great conversation between our two leaders. On Friday, Dr. Joe and Reverend Charles again are going to continue sharing transformational principles in a question and answer format. We are entering into a new era that is a time to be spiritually prepared. On Saturdays, we have meditation. For those of you who like to sit and through a guided meditation, I know that every one of the practitioners has, and our ministerial students, soon to be ministers, have all created their own guided meditation in their particular style, and each one is exceptional. Then Sunday, obviously we have Sunday service with Dr. Joe, and our special guest for Sunday is going to be Amy Armstrong. That's going to be wonderful. Every one of these services has just touched my heart, and I know that they touch yours as well. On Monday, we have David Alt with Dr. Joe resuming their conversations that bring about transformational changes in listeners who tune in, and even those who don't tune in, because we all know that we are one. And so one person's thought is a race consciousness thought. Wait a minute. I gotta research that one. That was pretty deep even for myself. My toes can't touch the bottom of the pool on that one. Anyway, Tuesday, we have Join Reverend Charles with Jafon Seeley. Again, those conversations for the past few weeks about what's going on has been very insightful. You know, what is mine to do? Not only for myself, but for those around me. That is what this philosophy is about. It is about changing the world by starting with your own heart. And when you realize that you have and are the expression of spirit, without a doubt, you can't help but change your views and philosophies of everyone around you, and you see life differently. And that is how we're going to come together. With that said, I think that we have that done. I believe if there's nothing else, I will do a closing prayer for us. Is there anything else that any one of my colleagues would like to say? Wonderful. Well, thank you so very much for joining us today. And just allow yourself to relax. As I take that deep breath in, that breath of spirit, that breath of knowingness, that breath of sacrifice, letting go of the previous idea about myself. There is nothing happening here except the fulfillment and expression of spirit. That spirit is love. That spirit is joy. That spirit is freedom of expression. I know that I am one with that divine ideal. Everything that God is, I most definitely am. And so it is from that standpoint of consciousness that I direct my life, and I direct this prayer right here and right now. That spirit unfolds perfectly. That what's needed to be heard was heard. Expressions of love and inclusivity. The idea of letting go, grabbing on to the greater ideal, the greater expression of myself, of ourselves. We are the action and spirit of love. I know I live from that viewpoint of love. I understand that changes come, changes that bring forth a greater understanding of love and expression. I allow those sacrifices to happen because I know the joy of spirit unfolding right here and right now. So in this knowing, I have such great gratitude for the comprehension and understanding of the connection we all have. I am so filled with joy knowing that there's only one thing happening right here and right now, and that is nothing less than spirit expressing perfectly. And so in that knowing, I release my word as law, knowing it is already done. And together we say, and so it is.